Hello, listeners. It's Friday, January 24th, 2025. Welcome to Voiceover Work, an audiobook sampler. Where do you listen? Today we have a preview of Peter Hollins' book, Become a Studying and Learning Machine. In this preview episode, we're going to listen to the first few minutes of each chapter of Peter Hollins' book to give you an idea of the topics that are covered and if the information is something that would be of interest to you. So let's get right into it. Peter Hollins' book, Become a Studying and Learning Machine. This has been Become a Studying and Learning Machine. Strategies for the top of the class, promotions, and smashing your goals, written by Peter Hollins, narrated by Russell Newton. Copyright 2024 by Peter Hollins. Production copyright by Peter Hollins. Chapter 1, Understanding the Structure of Learning. Imagine the following scenario. You're a law student, and there's an important test coming up at the end of the month. You painstakingly worked your way through all the material, spending time on each textbook, chapter, and article, and then, the day before the test, you quickly revise everything you've learned, i.e., you read through it all once again. On the day of the test, you draw a blank. You can answer a few questions, but you're having a hard time recalling the things you need to. You don't get it. Haven't you spent hours and hours studying? Haven't you made countless notes? How could it be that all that work amounted to so little in the end? This is a book about all the ways our assumptions and misconceptions about learning may be getting in the way of us achieving our learning potential. Without realizing it, most of us have acquired a set of unhelpful beliefs, habits, and attitudes from our time in conventional education, and we reflexively turn to these old ways of doing things any time we need to acquire new skills or knowledge. In the chapters that follow, we'll be looking more closely at the normal way of studying, and instead considering more evidence-based, effective alternatives that will get you real results. We'll begin with an understanding of how learning actually takes place, and how to structure our approach to match the way our brain naturally incorporates new material. We'll explore the power of a consistent reading habit, and also how to read for maximum benefit. We'll look at intelligent ways to boost your memory, and why the special tips and tricks don't always work. We'll examine all the ways that staying organized can actually improve the quality of your thought, and we'll be reappraising deeper beliefs about work, rest, play, and creativity, and how you can consciously harness their power. How to use successive relearning. But first, let's return to the law exam and going blank after hours of study. This situation is not uncommon, and the reason it happens is this. Your studying was not true, genuine practice. You certainly did spend hours reading and making notes, but what you didn't do is spend time practicing the one skill that would matter, retrieving information. Look back at the story and you'll see that you practiced retrieval, i.e., actively recalling information from memory, just once in the whole month, and that was during the exam itself. No wonder you didn't find it so easy. The truth is that effective learning is not automatic. What's more, just because you spend time and effort, it does not mean you are learning. Learning is only effective if it is strategic and actually reflects and supports the way your brain genuinely acquires new skills and knowledge. That means that if we truly want to learn, we need a deliberate and proven approach, rather than merely defaulting to habitual study techniques that seem like a good idea: reading, highlighting text, making notes. Knowing how to learn is itself a skill, and it's the reason you're reading this book right now. To learn well, we need to understand how the human mind works so we can optimize. no matter what topic we're trying to... Chapter 2, Know How to Read Intelligently. There are some disciplines and skills that require very little book learning, such as dance, athletics, or music. For most of us, however, our chosen topic of study will, sooner or later, require a little reading, or a lot. Even if our chosen discipline is not book-heavy, we can almost always derive some benefit from reading about it one way or another. In this chapter, we'll be looking at ways to fine-tune your reading skills so that you can get the greatest benefits from the best learning tool humankind has ever invented, books. Descartes' reading tips. What is your attitude to reading? In your world, what is reading really for? And what place does it have in your everyday life? For the world's most learned and accomplished people, the answer to the above is that reading is simply everything. There are very few great thinkers, talented masters, or other intellectual heavyweights who don't have reading as a central feature of daily life. If you want to learn, in other words, you need to know how to read. Yet so few of us are actively taught how to go about it. First, reading serves various purposes: entertainment, inspiration, distraction, knowledge acquisition, or a combination of all of these. Not every instance of reading needs to reach PhD levels of profundity or be supremely useful, but if we are thinking about reading to learn, we need to understand how to read in a strategic, deliberate, and focused way. We can think of reading as far more than mere input. It's an active means to expand knowledge, find meaning, understand others and oneself, discover, and improve life while minimizing mistakes. As David Ogilvy aptly put it, reading furnishes the mind and enriches life. Reading is, essentially, an adjunct to and expansion of our own consciousness. Farnham Street, or FS blog, has a great tagline: mastering the best that other people have already figured out. And this neatly encapsulates one of reading's key benefits. Through books, we access a wealth of accumulated knowledge, often recycled from the past. By drawing on the wealth of knowledge and understanding already laid down in countless written works, we're granted access to more intellectual territory than we could ever secure on our own. In a way, we drastically expand our zone of proximal development. Think of all the things we could achieve with the help of every great thinker from the whole of history. Read in any way you can, and that includes borrowing from libraries, reading online PDFs and copies, or accessing ebooks. If possible, however, try to own hard copies of books, since this allows a certain familiarity and encourages a deeper grasp of its material, since you can annotate the book exactly as you like and return to its pages again and again. Take a look at the following advice for how to read a book, in particular, a work of philosophy. I should like the reader, first of all, to go quickly through the whole book like a novel. Chapter 3, Sharpening Your Memory. Leanne considers herself intelligent. She enjoys her studies and feels like she has a very good grasp on the fundamentals. The problem is exams and tests. Whenever Leanne finds herself facing that dreaded exam paper, her nerves get the better of her, and she can't remember a thing. Suddenly all her intelligence and understanding fly out the window, and she does far worse on the exam than she knows she should. She believes she has a poor memory, but the truth is that Leanne's memory is just fine. Her studying strategy, however, is not working for her. In this chapter, we're going to be looking at how to boost your own memory and learn to study and revise in a way that genuinely helps you retain everything you learn. The blurting method. You may have encountered the concept of blurting on TikTok or YouTube, where it first gained prominence. Originally from the creator Untitled Chapter, the technique seems to genuinely work for those who try it. According to Untitled Chapter, there are 3 parts to any revision process. 1. Understanding. 2. Learning. 3. Applying. Sometimes we can get stuck on the first 2 levels and fail to challenge ourselves to move to the 3rd. In other words, once we feel like we understand a topic and have learned it, we lose interest and move on. The result of this, however, can be a sense of having not quite fully absorbed the material. So how can the blurting technique help? The process is as follows. Step 1. You quickly review material you've already covered. These could be notes, flashcards, mind maps, or summaries you made during revision. You remembered to make them, right? Step 2. You turn this material into a series of prompts, not unlike creating questions as we saw in a previous section, that trigger you to blurt. A prompt can be a short phrase, a mathematical formula, a single word, a mnemonic, even a diagram or symbol. Step 3. You give yourself a time limit and start the clock. You may have to experiment with a good time period. Start with around 3 or 4 minutes for a standard textbook chapter, but use your discretion to dial this up or down as needed. Put the pressure on, but remember, you don't need to make it a race. Step 4. With the timer running, quickly move through each of your prompts and get ready to blurt. This just means throwing out any and all ideas that spring to mind when you see this prompt. Until the timer runs out, just do a kind of brain dump and dig around in your memory for everything you already know about this topic. You can do this verbally, but it may make more sense to quickly scribble notes on a blank piece of paper, just so you have a record of what you came up with. Step 5. When time's up, consult the material you started with. It's now time to annotate these notes and mark all those areas where you're missing knowledge and struggling, as well as places you've mastered well. Use your chosen or preferred annotation system to really keep things coherent. For example, Chapter 4, Be strategic, stay organized. Daniel is making strides in his learning journey. He's found a great rhythm using the stick framework and has developed a consistent flow between testing, spaced or interleaved practice, and plenty of smart note-taking. He's learning to be his own teacher and gently scaffolding his way to more advanced understanding, dialing up the challenge and adjusting his goals as he goes along. He reads daily and produces countless annotated texts, summaries, mind maps, and blurting notes to guide his process. This is actually his problem, however. He is drowning in notes. Daniel is extremely motivated and not afraid of working hard, but he falls short when it comes to keeping himself organized. He's starting to notice that merely looking at his cluttered and chaotic study room is making him want to procrastinate. We mentioned earlier that the best way to learn is to work with all the brain's innate powers and preferences so that we develop in a natural way. The same is true when it comes to organization. Our outside is a reflection of our inside, and the degree of organization and logic in our external world mirrors the degree of organization in our internal world. Change one, and you cannot help but change the other. That's why in this chapter, we'll be looking at ways to use principles of organizing, not just to stay neat and tidy, but to improve the quality of your thought more generally. The Zettelkasten method. You've highlighted all the interesting bits in a text and made a useful summary. But what do you do with the paper itself and the additional summary you've generated? You've made a comprehensive study timetable and scheduled all your learning blocks. But where should this schedule live? You've collected an impressive array of books, papers, and journal articles, but what on earth are you going to do to stop them from proliferating in piles all over your desk? The answer to all these problems, of course, is to have a clear and intelligent system of organization. The Zettelkasten method is one such system, and it should not be thought of as an organization or tidying approach, but rather a method for more disciplined and effective thinking. It's more than just Marie Kondo for your office. It's an organizational framework that helps you process and manage information of all types so that your process, whatever it is, remains as streamlined and effective as possible. By creating such an external storage system, you relieve the burden on your own memory and actually enhance your recall abilities. By keeping your system logical, meaningful, and relevant, you create more robust mental models within your own brain. Finally, a good system like the Zettelkasten method is also a clever way to cut down on stress and overwhelm, so you feel more in charge and in control, and less likely to procrastinate or make preventable mistakes. Any organization system has to do one thing well: help you connect. It needs to systematically link ideas together so that you can easily find them again, but also inspire you to make fresh connections, solve problems, or uncover new, interesting relationships you didn't see before. Such a system can, if done correctly, act as a kind of secondary... Chapter 5, Mastering Mindset. In the previous chapter, we explored the complex interplay between concrete and abstract, as well as all the ways in which the external world becomes represented internally, according to the way we organize ourselves and the material we're learning. By creating and following maps of our own learning process, we allow ourselves to take a step back and learn a little more about how we are learning. In this chapter, we'll take a closer look at the psychology behind learning, and, in particular, how certain misconceptions and assumptions can hold us back from our full potential. Thinking modes: focused or diffuse. In just the same way that abstract thinking is not better than concrete thinking, focused thinking is not necessarily superior to diffuse thinking. What do we mean by focused and diffused? Focused attention and thinking is fully invested in the single task in front of it. This is characterized by high levels of unbroken concentration, channeled completely toward achieving its chosen outcome. It's like the intense narrow beam of a laser. Diffuse attention is the opposite, and more spread out over a range of different stimuli, in a more free-form, relaxed, and responsive way, more like the softer but broad...